All right. Well, thank you folks for being with us here tonight. My name is Morgan Pellerin, and I'm here from the Career Development Center. I'm excited to have you all with us this evening to talk about staffing agencies. I know first, I'm going to acknowledge I have two little kids, and I can hear them right now, so chances are you probably can hear them too. We do have a talk about, being quiet and daddy has to work, but reasoning with a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old is a little difficult. So um, bear with me through that noise. Um, so I know for many folks, many students who kind of are in that point where they're near graduation, you may have heard the term like staffing agency thrown around, but you may not really know how they can help you or even what they do. So that's why we've invited a local staffing agency in Plattsburgh, Coryer Staffing, to kind of talk with us this evening to kind of help inform you about what staffing agency is about, what they do specifically, and how they can, how this staffing agency and also staffing agencies in general, how they may
Sure.
be able to help you depending on where you're located and what your situation is. So um, I'm going to let Sarah from Coryer Staffing kind of start off the introductions, and I'll let you kind of allow. I don't know how many of your folks are on the call, but you can kind of start it
I
off,
think it's the
Sarah.
two of
So
us.
Sarah
Yeah.
Brennan from Coryer Staffing will kind of introduce the rest of her team.
Sure. So yes, my name is Sarah. I am the director of the RAMP program and marketing at Coryer Staffing. I have been there since August, so close to a year. We also have David, our COO, and one of the founders of Coryer Staffing on the call as well. He has a great amount of experience in the staffing agency world and has wealth of knowledge and information to share. You do, it's true.
No, I always enjoy having conversations like these with students at SUNY Plattsburgh because doesn't seem like it was that long ago when I was one of those students graduating from
Mhm.
SUNY Plattsburgh um, back in '91. I was graduating with my degree in economics, and maybe like a good way to start it off is what I like about staffing and what I've enjoyed working in staffing over the last 20 years is kind of just the feeling that if had I been around to help me when I was graduating, I think I would have done a lot better job than I ended up doing on my own. Um, Mainly because I think that, oftentimes people in I don't know. It could be argued that we have the embarrassment of the riches, all the different programs and ways in which we try to help individuals as they're graduated from college. That didn't seem to be around when I was graduating. But even absent that, people, I don't think they realize what we are in business to do. And what a staffing agency is in business to do is to help companies identify the best talent in the marketplace so that those companies can be as successful as they possibly can be. Now, we can't do any of that without representing really talented individuals across a wide spectrum of disciplines, experiences, interests, and affinities, however you want to say it. So, on the one hand, we're helping the companies hire the people, and on the other hand, we're spending a lot of time helping the candidates themselves, the individuals seeking opportunities, trying to discover what they want to do, what they're good at, what they would like to do, how they can go about the job search, and coaching them and guiding them through that process. Now, people should know that staffing agencies don't cost the candidates any money. We don't charge individuals any money for any of the job search efforts that we perform on their behalf. And sometimes people say that a free service is sometimes less appreciated than something that you pay for. But I can tell you that there's a lot of time and energy that goes into trying to help individuals determine what they want to do, helping to get access to companies, helping to get them an interview, a first interview, a second interview, a final interview, coaching both parties through what eventually and hopefully is a successful job search. And from there, it's that from that relationship, oftentimes we are working together for the balance of somebody's career. You know, I've placed people 3, 4, 5 times over the period of 20 years, mainly because people like having a coach in their corner. They like knowing that there's somebody who is on their side, helping them make decisions, bouncing ideas off of them, and the like. So from my perspective, and when I'm talking to individuals who are graduated from college, I say that, you know, take the opportunity to sit down with us and let us learn about you. And from there, we'll discover a way to sort of help you land that first job, and or at least give you some guidance and direction so that your job search will be more successful than you would have been on your own.
Absolutely. And I would add too, when you're working with a staffing agency as well, you're working with a group of people that have a vast amount of connections in different industries, different companies, different communities. So you're really just casting a very wide net for your job search, leaving no opportunity unturned or, you know, researched, which when you're graduating college, you really want to make sure that that's what you're doing, that you're going after everything possible for you.
So I don't know if it makes sense to kind of have questions or that sort of thing. But I guess one thing I'll acknowledge is if folks have questions, please send them in through the chat. I'm monitoring the chat, so I'll relay that out to David and Sarah. So please feel free to just have any questions sent in. But I guess you know, feel free to, if you had something else planned, go ahead. But a question that kind of comes to my mind as you
Yeah.
were speaking, both of you, was kind of from the student. My language is student, but
That's
like
fine.
I guess the job seeker perspective, if they were to come in and like, you know, work with you, kind of what's like that first step in the process? Like how would someone get started who's like either starting their job search or like, oh, maybe a staffing agency would make sense, I don't know. Where would they get started?
Yeah, absolutely. So with Coryer, there are a number of ways that you can get started with us. What we have all of our candidates do is register. So you'll start by filling out an application with us, and that can be done, well, when our office is open. There's typically people stopping by if they wanted to fill out an application. Now we are doing that online as well, whether you're applying to a position directly through Indeed, registering on the Coryer Staffing website, or reaching out to us through social media. Our recruiters, though, are always scheduling interviews so that you can get connected with those positions. We do our interviews right now through FaceTime, Zoom, and over the phone as well. And once
we
you,
also,
oh,
yeah, we
go
also
ahead,
have a
please.
paperless application process. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, so that's how we're doing our application now. If you call our office or get connected to us through social media, we are sending our applications out using DocuSign. It's a pretty easy process. Whether you're on your cell phone or the computer, it's just touch and go, and you fill in the fields. Once that's wrapped up, it gets sent to our team of recruiters, and that kind of kickstarts the process of your job search with us.
And David, you mentioned like kind of coaching, or I think you said like, I don't know if you said like a partner in your corner or
Yeah.
something like that. And it sounds like, you know, you've built relationships with people over the course of your career. Um, what does that process look like, you know, for that, was that first time person, and kind of over the, you know, course of whether it's that first job they're looking for, if it ends up becoming the second, what does that relationship kind of look like?
Well, I've done this recruiting in many different markets, starting in Denver back in late '99, and then moving forward to today, but Chicago for many years, and in Plattsburgh for the last 14 some odd years. And through that, I built a strong network of people that I worked with in prior companies. Some of them have their own agencies and whatnot. And what a lot of people don't understand, and Sarah has experienced this by working at Coryer Staffing, is that the number of, when she mentioned the connections a minute ago, the number of people that I can contact in this community and have them call me back because of what we do and the reputation that we've earned over the years. People call me back. Presidents of companies, general managers call me back. And when I'm calling about a candidate that I like, an idea that I have. And recruiters in general, that's what they have in their own markets. I have a good friend in Florida who has a very fantastic staffing agency in the Orlando area. He also has offices in the Detroit area. I know recruiters in New York City. I know recruiters, of course, in Chicago and back in Denver. But in every single market where there's a reputable recruiter, you have an individual who has strong connections to the marketplace. And that's valuable to you as a candidate, as a student about to enter the job marketplace, because it's a wealth of knowledge through that contact. We know about those companies. We know the companies that are hiring. We know the companies that have a lot of turnover, who have a little turnover. We know about the culture within those companies. And a lot of that coaching is sort of trying to make a determination as to who the individuals are, again, what they want to do, what they like to do, where they might be a good fit, where their personalities might fit in well with the management team at XYZ companies, and providing some guidance along those lines. And also letting them know that, the interview process can be daunting for many, many people. I've been a natural born talker all my life, but I know that not a lot of people are. If you're an accountant, or if you're an economist, or if you're an engineer, you may be really, really gifted in your discipline, but being comfortable talking about yourself and selling yourself to a company is a challenge. And I spend some time, and our recruiters spend time with individuals, helping them through that, helping them understand their own resume, believe it or not, getting you comfortable with talking about the strengths that you have, the interests that you have, why you feel like you'd be the best candidate for the job, why you're a good fit for this company. And by practicing anything, you're better at it when you have to do it live. And sort of some of the quote unquote mock interviews that we end up having, if you will, not always formalized, but just conversations about the typical questions you may be asked. I found that candidates do a better job in interviews than their counterparts do, who don't receive that coaching, don't receive that guidance. And I really like that. The companies are paying us well to help them find these individuals. I want to represent people and help them be their best selves in that interview process, so that from the client standpoint, they're looking at our service as a value. That you're paying us money to go out and find these individuals. And wow, look at the talent that Coryer Staffing and David Coryer and his team are bringing to the table each and every day.
Yeah, I mean, and really what I'm hearing there that may be attractive to students, and again, my mind goes there,
Yeah.
is, just that there is you have what the employer is looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So you in turn kind of coach the candidates to like, hey, this is what you should be thinking about, in the interview process or that type of thing, which I think can be really helpful, particularly for that first job search where there's, the first time you're going through that. I remember for myself, it was, you get better as time goes on, but if you have the coaching along the way, it certainly could help.
Absolutely. And when David brought up having someone in your corner, it goes beyond just the interview coaching and that hiring process as well. When it comes to things like getting in a job offer, a recruiter can be very valuable in helping you to determine the offer package that you're receiving, and getting an understanding of things like a 401k, different benefits that you'll have access to, and even negotiating if you need to. So, when I graduated college, I did not know how to do any of that, and I found it extremely intimidating.
Yeah, I mean, we're working on that at the college, but certainly the more the better. We actually, part of this series, we call it the #adulting series. We had a session on actually with, you may know, Christina Ubel.
Yeah.
So we had her on, and she was talking about creating a budget, understanding retirement plans, understanding even like insurance to a degree. So that was interesting.
There's a gentleman on the call here who asked a question about, he said, if I'm an older student,
yeah.
Would you coach me differently than somebody who is just graduating from college? I think that I will tell you this, everybody gets coached differently, if you will, only because every individual is unto themselves, unique in who they are and what they want to do. And I mean, there might be, clearly there's some overlap. People are graduating with similar backgrounds or similar, degrees and whatnot. But each candidate that we meet with is sort of dealt with in their individual way. And to be honest, we deal more with candidates that have more experience than less. So many college students graduate from college and sort of enter the workforce or sort of figure out what they're going to do absent a recruiter. And it's always been sort of baffling to me, but I would like to do more with students who are graduating right out of college and helping guide them. But to answer his question, we would certainly make certain that we would be paying attention to the experiences that you bring to the table pre-college, during college, post-college, and making certain that we're teeing those up in a way that's really beneficial and attractive to your future employer.
Looks like we had another question come in as well. And I think I think you could kind of take it two ways. One, kind of speaking generally, but also speaking specifically about Coryer. I'll just read the question. It says, Coryer has connections, it's kind of asking, does Coryer have connections nationwide or just regionally around the Plattsburgh area?
The majority of the placements that we make is in the Plattsburgh area. We have an office out in St. Lawrence County, which isn't necessarily a hotbed for college graduate employment necessarily, but there's good employers out there. I'd hate to, there are strong companies out there, but today's day and age, with technology being what it is, from time to time, I've assisted companies and I've assisted individuals landing jobs from coast to coast. We certainly recruit candidates nationally to come to the North Country, but we've been in situations where we've had clients, and this goes back a couple of years, but clients who have multiple locations around the country and helping them hire individuals. The example that I bring up is the department store H&M had a period of time where they were hiring a group of sort of business analysts and HR analysts and store operations analysts as a sort of a SWAT team in each of their markets. And they were a customer of mine, and I was helping them in Boston and Washington, D.C. and in California hire those individuals. Many of those candidates came from those markets, but some of the candidates came from different markets and were willing to relocate for those opportunities. So it really is individual. If an individual wants to, graduate from college and work in a different market, either we will conduct that search on their behalf and work with them directly, or if I happen to have a strong contact within that marketplace, I would do a handoff to somebody that I know and say, hey, we have a strong college graduate looking for work in your marketplace. Let me make an introduction. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think kind of a follow-up to that would be, let's say, because, our students kind of, some are, I think 25% or so are local to Plattsburgh, but, the rest are kind of,
Sure.
Throughout the state and the country and the world.
Long Island and
yeah.
greater New York area, right?
But I'm wondering, let's say someone is not in the Plattsburgh area and they're considering a staffing agency, and maybe in their area there are many. What recommendations would you have for someone who's looking at staffing agencies to kind of help them vet one over the other? I guess what are red flags or what are good things to look out for?
Red flags are, I don't know if there are many red flags. I mean, there are always there are great real estate agents in certain markets, and there are probably not so great real estate agents in any one market. And I think the same thing goes for recruiters. If you wanted to work with somebody immediately or in your immediate area, wherever you happen to be going back to or relocating to, I would interview with a few of them. I would call them up, register with them, tell them what you want to do. And what you'll find out quickly is there's bound to be an individual or two who really take your job search seriously. You can tell by the energy, you can tell by the care and concern, and then you'll find individuals who don't do that, who sort of you seem to have fallen through the cracks and you're not getting the communication that you desire. And just let the cream rise to the top. You'll be represented by somebody who is strong in your marketplace, who wants to place you, partially because oftentimes that's the lion's share of how they're compensated, is by being paid a fee to help companies find talented people. But if they're doing their jobs right, they're not just trying to slam placements around so that they can be paid. They're trying to do well by the companies that hire them to do the work and to best represent the talent that's coming through their doors every day. So I would just look up recruiters in your marketplace.
Okay, great. And this is not a question that got typed in, but it's a common question, and either of you can take this one. But
Sure.
A common question that comes up is, I work with a staffing agency. Like, who do I get paid by, and like, how does that work? And I think it's probably different depending on the type of placement it is. But
Right. So in most of our positions, you are paid by Coryer Staffing. You're a Coryer Staffing employee. And then once the company itself, we call it rolling onto their payroll, then you would be paid directly by the employer. We do, however, have positions that are kind of a direct hire, direct start style position, where you would be paid by the employer directly rather than Coryer Staffing. So it does tend to vary a little bit.
Does that make sense?
yeah,
I know it's a tough one.
Well, let me just give you a couple of examples. You're graduated from college and maybe you don't really know what you want to do right away. So you apply for maybe a entry-level accounting or an entry-level administrative position within a company, right? Just to get your foot in the door. Many of those positions may be temporary, or they call temporary to hire. And so you're an employee of the staffing agency. You're paid by the staffing agency. The company that's where you're doing the work, they pay the staffing agency every week for the hours that you work. And then at some point in the future, if the job is truly temporary, maybe you're just filling in for somebody who's out on medical leave, or maybe there's some seasonalities to that employment or what have you. Like seasonalities could be the busy season for CPA firms. They might add additional horsepower to their ranks during the busy season, if you will, between January 1 and April 15th. At the end of that busy season, it's not so busy, so those assignments end. There are also positions that are hired in what's called a contract to hire or temporary to hire capacity, where you're still an employee of the staffing agency. And then at some future point, the client determines that they like you, they like what you're doing, they could see you being a long-term part of their team, and then they would make you an offer to come on board their company, and then you'd be a full-time employee with that company. Direct hire is what I first got into 20 years ago, and I still head up at Coryer Staffing. We have a strong team doing temporary and temp to hire, but the direct hire business is one where you are represented by the staffing agency. You go through a round of interviews with the client companies that we're introducing you to, and when the company hires you, you're an employee with them on day one. Okay.
And is there like is it like more of the positions in one or the other, or is it kind of split down the middle, or
The majority of the staffing that most staffing agencies do are temporary or temp to hire. But that's not to say we don't have a strong direct hire business. And just on pure volume, there's more temp and temp to hire work out there. And then the direct hire work is stuff that's, it's not just executive. It's not even just sort of key employee. Sometimes it's sort of a nature of the company's position, the company's outlook, what the company wants to do. If it's a real, most recently, prior to COVID-19, we had a very, very competitive marketplace with respect to talent, if you will, right? So companies would want to hire you very quickly because they felt like if you were out there as a temporary or a contract employee, there's a good chance that a competing company might hire you before they do. And so direct hire is really, really running at a fast pace in that kind of labor marketplace, if you will, right?
Yeah.
What we'll find coming out of COVID-19 is that direct hire may be on hold or sort of delayed, or there's a not as much volume in the direct hire business. But interestingly, there'll be a large volume of temporary and temp to hire business, because companies are still going to want to produce their products. Companies are still going to want to, they're going to have demands put upon them by their customers to get the product out the door, in product and or service, if you will, right? But they might have some uncertainty as to the future of the marketplace, the future of the economy. Any of those things sort of encourage companies to use temporary or contract employees more. And that's just labor economics 101 almost.
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
Trying to think of anything other. I did have a question. This just kind of came in my head, and I think it could be interesting for students too. Is kind of just the perspective on like resumes as well. I don't know if that's your first contact you usually would have with a candidate, but I guess things you're really looking for in resumes, or that you find that companies you're working with really look for.
Sarah, you want to run with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll jump in too, but sure.
For some candidates, their resume is the first contact that we get from them. For others, it is their application that we see first. In terms of a resume, though, your recruiter will go through that resume with you. They will comb through it for any grammatical errors, any inaccuracies. They will help you to make sure that it's written properly, that it is, exhibiting your experiences, your key skills, everything that you have to offer an employer. And if it's a specific company that they're matching you with or sending you off to, they'll be sure to double check that the resume fits that company's standard as well. That's one thing at Coryer Staffing that we're very careful with, making sure that the resumes we send out are accurate, clear, concise, that they exhibit what companies are looking for in their employees, and really just set that tone right before the interview, giving off a great impression for a candidate. So if you're graduating, you don't necessarily have a completed resume just yet, don't let that keep you from getting in touch with us. If you don't have a resume, that's fine. We can help you write one and make one.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, but if you're graduating from college, I would say invest some time in at least putting down, even if it's not going to be the best format first time, put down what you've done scholastically, what you've done, any type of work experience, anything at all that outlines sort of who you are, what you're about, because, I could go down a whole rabbit hole here, and I don't know if we have enough time, but, you're going to have an opportunity in front of these companies to talk about what's on your resume. But you're also going to have an opportunity to talk to companies about who you are, right? And, getting the resume out there and having that clean slate first is going to give you many, many points of entree, if you will. Working with a recruiter, it's an easy tool for them to open the door on your behalf. If you're not working with a recruiter, it's an easy tool to open the door on your behalf. But after that, you want to make certain, and this is the coaching side, is you don't want everything to be about that resume. You want that resume to be clean, concise, sort of detailing what you're about, but then getting the coaching, getting comfortable with having conversations about who you are, what you want to do, what's important to you. And we coach along all of those lines, if you will.
Yeah, no, I mean that falls in line with, I think, a lot of the feedback we give students too, is the resume may get you an interview, but it's not going to get you a job. Like the next step is then they want to see you. They want to see how how you interact, how you talk about yourself, how you portray yourself in an in-person setting. And like you just said, there's a lot more to that than just the piece of paper.
It's kind of like when people go to an interview and after the interview they say, this is BS. I should have landed that job. I was qualified for that job. And I want to tell people it's not about qualifications land you an interview. Who you are lands you the job.
Yeah.
Right.
And every time you go for an interview, let's just say if it's a direct hire, full-time position, the company's going to interview 5, 6, 7, maybe 10 people. And so your odds are stacked against you, not to be negative about it, but almost give yourself a break. Go in there, do your best. If you don't win the day, don't beat yourself up. Just make certain that you're not setting yourself up for failure by not having the resume right, by not practicing and being able to accurately communicate what you're about and what you want to do and what you've done. But in the end, it's going to be, did you make a connection with that individual? Did you make a connection with that team? And if you did, those are the individuals who land the jobs.
Yeah.
Has less to do with the qualifications.
And I mean, just for students who are listening, I mean, I usually talk about interviewing as a learning process, particularly at this point in your career where you're kind of just starting out. I really hope your first few interviews go really well, but
Right.
chances are, you're probably going to learn a lot from your first interview. Hopefully some good things, maybe some things not to do, and that's okay. Like I think as David just shared, you're going to probably have many interviews, and you're going to get better at them over time. So I think I usually echo that. I'm like, don't be too hard on yourself.
No, definitely.
I think a couple quick tips would be, when you go to an interview, have 3 or 4 of your resumes, 3 or 4 copies of your resume printed out and in a nice folder. Okay. Make certain that you appear sort of clean and neat in that regard. The reason is that even if you email the resume, even if you send it to HR and they already have it, always show up with 3 or 4 printed copies in a little folder, so that if you walk into the interview and the manager looks at you and says, "You're not going to believe this, but something's going wrong with my computer this morning. Do you happen to have a copy of your resume?" You're not saying, "No, I emailed it. I thought that you had it already." Instead, you're like, "Yeah, I've got a copy here." Okay, so that's copy 1. And maybe you pull out copy 2. So you're looking at your resume, they're looking at your resume. Let's say the interview goes really, really well. And this has happened from time to time. This is just 20 years of experience. Now it's, "Hey, I'm going to bring you down the hall and meet Sally. She heads the department, and I really think she's going to be excited to meet with you." Now you walk in, and Sally didn't even know she was going to meet you 2 minutes ago. Now you're walking in, and Sally says to you, "Very nice to meet you. Do you have a copy of your resume?" Now this is copy number 3 coming out, and you're looking like a superstar now, right? You're organized, and you're not stumbling, you're not bumbling, you're not making excuses as to why you thought they had a copy of your resume. Have a copy of your resume. So that's tip number 1. Okay, if you walk away from this with anything. Tip number 2 is always be kind to the receptionist. When you walk in, you introduce yourself, you sit down, because that person at the company is the one individual who probably almost single-handedly has more conversations with everybody throughout the company, almost more than some of the people that work there. The CEO will talk to that individual when they walk in. The person who washes the floors has a conversation with that person at the end of the day. Everybody kind of goes through, and I've seen so many situations in my life where people will come in, and I used to do this. In fact, when I was in Chicago, I'd interview somebody, and then I'd go back out and I'd ask my receptionist, "What'd you think?" And she would let me know whether or not that person was a jerk when I'm not around. Like, I'm the guy who's most likely going to hire them or not, and everybody's friendly to me, but how are you to the person at the front desk? And once in a while, you'd find that people are jerky to the person at the front desk. For whatever reason, they think that they're better than that individual, they're above that individual, and it's a big, big mistake. It's a bad attitude to have in general, but even if that is a part of your personality, overcome it, be nice to the receptionist. You just don't know what kind of conversations are going to be taking place after the interview.
Yeah.
Right?
Good point. Definitely.
Those are 2 takeaways.
No, that's great. So I think I haven't seen any more questions come from the students who are with us. And I think I've exhausted all my questions, but I don't know if you had any parting thoughts you wanted to share or anything.
Yeah, and I hope they do have questions. I like it when it really is a sort of a dynamic environment, whatever the case might be. Is it Lilia or Valerie? If they have any questions on the call here. We have more, right? Griffin, any other questions?
Nope, no more questions.
Any parting thoughts, Sarah?
One thing I would say is to follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, any social media channels. We're always posting jobs. We're posting videos so you can get to know our recruiters, get more familiar with the Coryer Staffing team, and just keep track of what we're up to and what our team can offer you.
Also know that I'm heavily invested in the success of students who graduate from SUNY Plattsburgh. I'm a graduate myself. I'm on the Dean's Advisory Council. Anything that I can do to help people have good experiences, not just while they're in college, but as they're graduating from college, so that they feel the investment that they've made in their education is paying off. I'm all about it. So absolutely, we're here for you.
Thank you both. So just to kind of wrap up for students, know that I know we're near graduation, but the Career Development Center doesn't stop working for you after you graduate. Our services are still available. You can connect with us online. We're doing virtual sessions right now. And we also have about 8 workshops we've done since March virtually, and they are all online on our website. You can watch recordings of them. So I would encourage you to do that. There's a wide range. And just thank you for being here tonight. And thank you very much to both David and Sarah for joining us. This has been great. I actually learned a lot too. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Anytime, we're always available. We're happy to
Oh,
participate.
we'll definitely be in touch. Thank you.
All right.
Have a good evening.
Yeah,
Have
you
a good
too.
night, guys.
Good night.